first. Mr Dismore.
In the wake of the terrible events in Paris, the biggest concern for the Jewish community in London is the security of Jewish schools. Not all of them benefit from the grant to the CST for school security, for example, private nurseries. And this worry is not surprising because in France, in the very recent past, Jewish schools have been attacked and children murdered.
Sorry, could you repeat the name of the school? I didn't catch it.
I didn't name a particular school.
Sorry, I just can't hear what you're saying, Andrew.
I think it's the microphone.
Thank you.
Points it in way to where I'm looking. The point I'm making is that not all Jewish schools benefit from the CST grant for school security, particularly, for example, some of the private nursery schools. Now, the Jewish community are very worried about school security, particularly after recent events in France where Jewish schools were attacked and children murdered. So what can you do to reassure the community about this, and in particular, what additional steps can you take to provide security for all Jewish schools?
Well, as you know, we are taking steps, and you'll have heard what AC Mark Rowley and indeed Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe have said just in the last few days about the importance of giving confidence, particularly to the Jewish community in London, and there is work going on now to ensure that all such areas are properly patrolled. I will look, if I may, at exactly what arrangements we have for the private nursery schools that you describe, Andrew, and I will seek assurances from the Met that they are receiving the kind of cover, the kind of protection that we would all want to see.
Well, I think that's very, very helpful. It's not just private nursery schools. Private schools generally aren't covered by the CST grant, and there's obvious reasons for that.
I understand that, and so if there is a lack of adequate coverage, then that will be speedily identified. It is important to stress that we are working very, very much now with the CST. Stephen Greenhalgh has recently met them, and we are obviously very impressed by the range of services that they supply. But where there are gaps, it is obviously up to us as the guarantor of safety in this city to fill those gaps, and we take our responsibilities very seriously.
Okay, the next question is about social rent increases, and it's in the name of Assembly Member Dismore.
Thanks, Andrew. I think the key thing here, you're asking about Barnet Council's plans to increase council rents to either LHA or 80% of market rents, local housing allowance or market rents, and what representations we're making to Barnet. And what we're saying is, they've got to show, if there are to be conversions from social rent to affordable at 80% or whatever rate, they've got to show that conversion, that uplift, will lead to new housing supply. It's got to fund new housing supply, and I think that's about as much as we can say at the moment, because our discussions with Barnet are ongoing. But that is the basis on which we would approach any approval or disapproval.
No, but would you now agree then, the figures that I put to you last time, that West Hendon rents, for example, more than double?
West
Hendon rents, for example, more than double. A two-bed flat would have to pay, the occupants would have to pay an extra £535 a month. A three-bed flat, an extra £763 a month. Do you think that's fair?
I don't think that any council should be increasing rents dramatically for existing council tenants, and we've made it clear that they should be limited in general rent increases to CPI plus 1% from April 2015 onwards, and excessive increases in rents can only really be justified, or big increases in rents can only really be justified, I think, in cases where you have high-income tenants, where you've got people living in council housing, in social housing, on incomes above, say, 66,000 for small households, 80,000 for larger families. For instance, members of the Labour Party, like
let's move on to this point you
Jasper, for
Let's move on to this point you make about housing supply. Yesterday, the public inquiry into the West Hendon regeneration scheme, which you approved, the compulsory purchase audit public inquiry begins. I'm giving evidence to it tomorrow. And bearing in mind what you said to Andrew Boff earlier on, here we've got a position with leaseholders challenging Barnet Council's below market offer of £175,000 for a two-bed flat, when a replacement is up to £415,000, breaking the council's promise that everyone who wanted to stay on the estate would be able to do so. Do you think that's fair, bearing in mind what you said to Andrew Boff earlier on?
Well, I think...
Would you like to congratulate me on being vigilant in digging this story out?
Well, obviously, I'm never. I hope I'm never sparing in my congratulations to you for virtually everything. If people are being ripped off by any council, then that's a matter for concern, and I think the remedy that Andrew proposes is a sensible one.
Well, it's been through all that process, and that's why we're now at a public inquiry stage. We're having to go to a public inquiry to challenge the council's decisions on this. And it's probably hardly surprising, really, when we've got a...
Well, I think Andrew's idea was for a RICS accredited survey.
That's all been done. That's all been done. And the council is still not accepting any of that. That's why it's going to a formal government-appointed, independent assessor public inquiry. And it's perhaps highly surprising with a Conservative, dodgy landlord mayor in Barnet. His latest trick is to serve notice to quit an tenant of 21 years standing, one of the whistleblowers from last summer, saying she could either get out, pay an increased rent or buy the flat for £400,000, all on housing benefit, which has been paid direct to him for years. Do you think that's fair?
Well, you know, I've noticed, and through you, Chair, I've noticed that the member continually uses this forum to heap opprobrium on particular individuals who are not well, perhaps known to this Assembly or known to Londoners. I'm not sure it's an entirely fair process. I think that it would probably be wrong of me to comment in detail about particular cases. And as for the inquiry that's taking place at the moment, I think I should leave it to the inquiry.
See, isn't all this really contributing to Conservative Barnet's gerrymandering social cleansing policy? Housing Chair Tom Davey said in full council in April last year, quotes, "They're the people we want, good Conservative voters," close quotes. That's Barnet's housing policy. Do you agree with it?
Well, I'm not going to be drawn into endorsing or disagreeing with words that I'm sure have been wrenched out of context.
Absolutely
and are unfair,
not.
And are unfair to the political opponents of Mr. Dinsmore, who he continually drags into this assembly. They have no ability to answer for themselves here. He uses this forum repeatedly to attack people in a way that I think many Londoners will think is unfair. Given the one-sided nature of these deliberations. It's always open to you to stand for Barnet Council. Perhaps you are on Barnet Council, I have no idea.
The next supplement. Oh, Mr. Dismore.
Mr. Mayor, all over London, we've seen your police propaganda posters stuck on phone boxes and so on. The total cost of this was a staggering £562,884. Don't you think it would have done more for public confidence in the police if that more than £500,000 had been spent on extra police officers rather than propaganda posters?
You've heard what I've had to say about spending on police officers. I think we've got more police constables now in the police than any time in the history of the Met, and that's what the public want to see. I think it's also important to inform the public about where they can find about their police officers and what's happening in their neighbourhoods. I see absolutely no inconsistency.
Well, actually, that's not quite right, is it? Because in London, we've actually got 1,713 police officers fewer than in 2010. In Barnet, we've got 60 fewer than in 2010. So it's not right to say that we've got more police officers than ever before.
I said police constables.
But can I put this to you?
And it is certainly the case.
I haven't asked you the question yet.
Well, I'm just correcting
Well, let me
mistake.
ask you the question. If you were going to waste money like this, £500,000 on posters, wouldn't it have been given greater credibility, and would it not have been better for public confidence if the posters chimed with the public's own experiences of the performance, rather than your walty-mitty policing world? In Barnet, yes, crime is down, yes, by magnificent 1%.
I'm glad you admit it.
1%.
glad you
Violent crime, however, is 34% up. And you mentioned burglary. Only 3% of burglaries in Barnet have resulted in a prosecution. Now, that is the public's experience. Yes, some crime's gone down, but the things they care about has gone up too. Wouldn't it have been better if your posters had tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, rather than your selective version of what the measures do?
I think most reputable analysts would accept that crime in London has shown a remarkable fall. Indeed, at the recent MOPAC challenge, we were informed by the crime statistics by Steve Otter that actually the falls in crime in London were now outstripping the rest of the country by so much that the overall fall in crime in England and Wales as a whole is attributable to the fall in crime in London, and that is a huge tribute to the work of the Metropolitan Police Service. And I think that rather than slagging off your local police force, Andrew, you'd be well advised to support them and support what they're doing.